All right, go ahead.
Okay, we came down this roadway and we had to come down by night because it was under fire from that ridge just behind the house there. It's a heavily defended ridge. And we occupied part of this house, and there was a Sherman tank here. The crew occupied the other part. But the crew was issued what they called a grease gun, and the tankers hated them. They wanted M1s, so I went to the battlefield where there were a lot of casualties and picked up 6 or 7 M1s and brought them here. I brought a table outside and took every rifle apart, cleaned it, oiled it, reassembled it, and then I was called away. And then when I returned, my friend Ross Overholt was standing in the doorway of the house. And I was speaking with him, and then after I cleaned him and oiled him, then I would pull the bolt back, squeeze the trigger, and to make sure everything was cleared. And I went up one at a time, picking them, and picked up the last rifle, pulled the bolt back and squeezed the trigger, and it fired. And the shot went right above Ross Overholt's head in the top of the doorway. What had happened in my absence, somebody laid a loaded rifle in there with the cleared rifles. And of course, when I pulled the trigger, it fired. But there was a .30 caliber machine gun out the window here. And because it would direct some fire at the ridge. But one morning, a German soldier stood up out of the trench and sort of stretched and put his overcoat on, and we couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe that he would do something like that. The next morning, he did the same thing, but this time somebody fired. I hope he was only wounded, but that was a foolish thing to do. But we were here quite a while in this house, and we had, let's see, oh yeah, that's right. Once we were settled and once we were cut out, by the 104th on our left and the 1st Division on the right, we could sort of settle down here and heat the house, but we needed coal. And across the street there was a barn house combination. And I went over there and I found a pile of coal briquettes, so I brought them over here. And we used them to heat the kitchen, to do what cooking we could. And here I find out that after the war, well, during the fighting here, the civilians had all been evacuated. But we found out that after the war, Mr. Lyston here was first to return to the neighborhood, and then the Essers, I guess. And it happened that Mr. Esser noticed that some of his coal was missing, and he blamed Mr. Lyston, since Mr. Lyston was first back. But anyway, in 1977, during my first visit, I was able to straighten it, and that was sort of a neighborhood feud because of the coal. But after I came here in 77, our first visit, I was able to straighten it out and tell them that I was the culprit who had taken the coal. So, but, and then at the time I needed a haircut and Ross Overholt needed a haircut, so we decided we would cut each other's hair. The thing is, he cut mine first, and he did such a rotten job that he didn't trust me to cut his because he knew I'd get my revenge, so that ended the haircutting business. But that was done right here. But we were here, I don't know, maybe 3-4 days, and here's where we got our replacements. Got a bunch of replacements, about 4 of them, I think, and I think 3 out of the 4 ended up being killed in the following action. So it brings back unpleasant memories. I remember some of those guys. I was named Bert Dulles. He was a school teacher from Buffalo, had 3 little girls, and there was a man by the name of Dorsey. He was killed, and there were 2 others, I think, that were a man by the name of Wordman, who was near our home, New Tripoli. He was killed. He had a little daughter. So that was tragic, that out of one house that there were that many guys killed. But that's the memory I have of this particular place, and here's where wonderful friends live.